All right, folks, welcome to the Elad Pod. Today we've got Matt Sydal, who is a Missouri-born pro wrestler. We're very excited to have him here on the show. We will also be talking a bit about not just wrestling in general, but we'll be talking a lot about what's going on. He's currently in Florida, the different things that he's got going on in his life, too. How he got to where he is, and also the political issues that we're all facing right now during the virus. And at the very end of this whole thing, we are all going to play a game. So I'm not going to ruin it yet. He doesn't know. I kind of don't know, but I kind of do know. So we'll go with that too. But let me bring in our guest today.
Kid growing up in St. Louis, and we became obsessed with pro wrestling. My brothers and the neighbor kids as well. And from there, we like watching it, of course, but it was just a lot more fun. Was the idea to go out in the backyard and just do it ourselves. In fact, sometimes before Monday Night Raw would air, they would have a little ad that would run before it, and it said, "Do not try this at home." And for us, that was an invitation to go try that at home. And basically, since then, I've been just trying to learn how to wrestle, learn different styles of wrestling, and just really, it's been just my constant pursuit since I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like the whole time I
Oh,
went to Mizzou, I was doing independent wrestling.
huh?
So the whole time I was there, I was wrestling. I mean, I started at a
Oh, wait.
local
I'm gonna
wrestling school.
I'm gonna
Oh,
pause you for 1 sec because everything you're saying is great, but apparently there's no sound coming through. So I'm gonna try something for you. All right, folks, if you can hear Matt, can you say hi now to see if they can hear you now?
yeah, hello, Matt
Okay.
Sydal here, pro wrestler and storyteller.
Okay, if you folks can hear him now, let us know. I think there might have been something unclicked on our end over here, so let us know. Hopefully you can, because Matt was saying some great stuff about how he got involved in the first place. So I'm sorry, bud, but if you could you again pretend like you didn't say anything and let us know, how you got involved. It's interesting because great, it's good now. So it's interesting because. Certainly started at a young age, yeah. I mean, did you do it? I guess it was just like a family thing that you all were kind of getting involved in this at the same time.
Yeah, luckily I was the middle son. I had an older and a younger brother, and they were both also enthralled with wrestling, and we all sort of liked it in different ways. I think I was the one that liked the physical performance aspect of it the most. But yeah, we all shared a love for it, so it was easy. If I wanted to suplex my brother, he sort of knew what I was trying to do, and he knew I wasn't trying to kill him.
Right.
And we sort of just did it, figured it out ourselves through imitation. And then I started going to an actual wrestling school in my senior year of high school, maybe the summer going into it. So I was pretty young when I got going, but when you're driven and you're into something, you just immerse yourself in it, and here you are 20 years later, still doing it.
Right.
kind of keeps, it's a through line for my family because my brother Mike, he lives in Kansas City and he wrestles there as well. And Mike and I have traveled to Japan together to wrestle. We had our other brother teaching English in Korea, and Mike and I both went over there to do pro wrestling, but also to visit him. So it's sort of been like this awesome tool that we've been able to use to go across the globe and perform and see family. And for as much stress of getting up, the early flights, the hard matches, it really is just something that, my whole family can still enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a really cool thing to have together. Let's see. So, I wonder. I mean, right now, so you're not in Missouri now. You're over in Florida, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Are you still wrestling today? I mean, not today,
Yeah. Well,
obviously,
I
right now.
wrestle. I'm an independent professional wrestler, and I also have a wrestling school. Well, I have a wrestling school that is currently on hiatus. So I have a school right here in Clearwater, Florida, near me, where I charge basically the same amount that I paid in 1999 to start to wrestle. That's what I'm charging you guys this day. The price really hasn't gone up much. But yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do. I still do travel and perform and wrestle, although as like basically since March 17th, I haven't left the house. So, we're just going to take things as it comes. You can't be too stuck in your past ways given this dramatic change in circumstances. So, I'm just trying to do my normal everyday routine and, wait this out.
Right, right. I mean, you're in Florida right now, and Florida. I guess we've heard some things on the news about it. So how is it going over there right now?
Well, I mean, I don't go out, so I don't know too many details. But luckily for me, I'm in Tampa, which is on the other side of the Fort Lauderdale, Miami,
Mm-hmm.
more hotspot. But still, we've got a lot of vulnerable people here, and the more serious people take it, the better, I think. And I just feel bad for. There's a lot of people here in Florida that don't have health insurance, or even if they do, they can't afford their co-payments or their deductibles, so they're not going to the doctor and they're just going to work, and that can cause a cascade of problems and more worse. People can get sick. That's really what we're worried about here. But what I do love is the quiet hum of the streets because things really have gone down a notch. The intensity has gone down. The amount of basic, any bit of unnecessary transport really has halted. I mean, I have a window open and it's just really quiet outside, and I think that's a really good sign. I just feel that there's going to be a really long timeline, and I don't know if people are ready to expect that and how we'll all do if things kind of continue. But I think when people realize that we can all get together and work together, we can really have an effect and mitigate this possible tragedy, have a tragedy that we all prevented together, which is more of a unity experience. And I think this is an opportunity to really bring people together. This is like a common enemy that's affecting everyone across the globe. The way it affects me in Florida is the same way it affects somebody in Florence, Italy, or somewhere in Alabama or anywhere else. It's just we really are all in this together. And I think it's a moment where the people will realize that the commonalities that we all have as humans and stop focusing on the differences in our like physical appearance and accent and really start to realize that it's all about working together.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I think that's a very, very important point because this virus is impacting all of us, and it's the way that we all deal with this together that is going to determine what the final outcome is going to be, right? It can't be just one person who's doing one thing. It really takes a community to deal with it. And it's been interesting to see because we are a country where there's multiple states, obviously, and we have different governors and there's different legislatures, different people who are elected, and obviously there's one federal government that's supposed to be some kind of a unifying body around that to give leadership in this time. But it's just been interesting to see, how different folks have dealt with the problem, and also seeing that the challenge that we're facing now doesn't respect those borders like we do in our government structure. So it's been I think your point is a really good one in that it really does take all of us coming together on this issue.
Yeah, and it does affect us. It affects everyone. And if things get bad in one place and not somewhere else, like you said,
Right.
the virus doesn't respect a border because they're kind of man-made constructs anyway.
Right.
And I think if you look at what's happening like in Germany versus Italy, there's a clear play that everybody's not equal. There's like uh, discrepancies in the kind of treatment people receive, or for example, in countries that are poorer or people that have much, in countries like India and Pakistan, things are very challenging there as well, and there's a lot less medical care. I mean, and the U.S. is kind of, I feel that this pandemic is the call for Medicare for all, and that the states, we have a lot of different governments, the state government, the federal government, but they really do, in an idealistic world, they serve, I'm at 10%, they serve the people. And if we all let it be known that we all want to save 50% on our medical bills, we want Medicare for all, I think that's something that could happen out of this, and then they can go back to debating all the rest of the politics. But I think when you boil it down, there's only one issue that matters between now and November, and that's people's health. And so you'd want to have the person who's going to save the most lives in charge in the hot seat, because for me it's a global issue. If I could do Medicare for all for the whole globe, that to me would be a goal I'd like to work towards, rather than having we have military bases in every country. Why can't we have we can do a lot of good. We have the
Yeah.
technology and the resources, and I think we have the ability to help people too. It's just a matter of like having national priorities as such, and those will only come from grassroots movements. Those are not going to come from top down things. They're only going to come from people demanding it of their representatives.
Right. I think, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something, we kind of connected on all of this through social media and the stuff that we were working on as a campaign. But, as you know, we've been so focused on making sure that our voices are heard in government. And far too often, government is making these choices that we look at, and it just doesn't make any sense because it's like people don't want that. People don't want to be not have these services, or to have their government serving folks who already have power and a lot of money and everything else. And time and time again, I think I came through this through education and in working with kids and seeing for years and years how particular kids in particular neighborhoods that didn't have resources always kept staying that way because our government isn't representing them. It's representing people with power who already have all of these great things. Yeah, it's interesting. So you're a big Medicare for all guy, huh?
Yeah, well, and my two big issues are Medicare for all. In principle, especially. But the other thing you talked about was education, and investing in education, I think, is one of the most important things and one of the most often neglected things in our country today. And, we just can't support youth no matter where they're from, equally, the way we can give equal opportunity to all of these kids. And I mean, we currently have a situation where our capitalistic society and consumerism preys on the young people instead of actually enlightening them and teaching them and raising them up and and growing them into something important and something with good roots. They're trying to throw sugar at the kids by the time they're 3, and I mean it's a very predatory society, and I don't think we protect the kids enough. And the stronger of an education we give them, the more they can build up the intellectual and prefrontal cortex like responses to advertisements instead of being stuck in their little child lizard brain. But some of these kids, before they're 18, their brains are still developing, and we're kind of
Right.
I don't know, but I just think we need a much stronger investment in our kids and education and teachers' salaries, and of course that comes because I'm a son of 2 teachers. So I've always felt that.
Yeah. No, I think that's really important. Yeah, I wonder. You mentioned that your parents are teachers, and they're both still here in Missouri, right?
Yes, that's correct. And they're both retired. But,
Both retired. Where are they? Are they in the St. Louis area?
Yeah. And my mom's in Chesterfield and my dad's in Kirkwood.
Okay. Yeah. And did they teach in those 2 districts, or were they teaching?
Yeah. So my mom worked in early childhood education, and my dad was a middle school teacher at Parkway South Middle and Piermont Elementary.
Yeah. And there's always the question around here in St. Louis. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Parkway West High School,
There you go.
Longhorns. Yeah,
Yeah.
very, very proud.
And you ended
Like I
up.
went to Mizzou, and I
I was
brag
about to
more
say.
about Parkway West than Mizzou. I don't know.
Did you? I wonder. Did you wrestle when you were at Mizzou?
So by the time I was at Mizzou, I was doing professional wrestling. That was like my entire focus.
Hmm.
So I would go to class Monday through Thursday, and then on Friday I'd cut out and drive to Chicago or drive to Nashville or drive to Memphis or any podunk town in Indiana. I mean, I could name off a million that I went to, and so that's sort of what I was doing the entire time I was at school.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I was just going to St. Louis, and then I started branching out, and pretty soon I was doing 12-hour road trips down and back, and then just crashing and then going right back to class and getting it done. I got out, 4 years is all it took, but boy, by the end I was really by the end I was just a wrestler who was on the road every weekend, and I was just a
Yeah.
road warrior at that moment.
Man, that's got to be tough, and not just like in terms of the time that it's taking, but yeah, I would think just like the recovery in between all of this stuff. Like, how do you deal with all of that?
It was different when I was young. I could just shove a Subway sandwich in my face and just go. I was a bit of a beast. It was pretty tough back then. Nowadays, it takes a lot more work and a lot more energy and focus. So I really do have to do a lot of therapy on myself.
Yeah,
I can't rely on a physical therapist every day because I would just live in their office. So what I do is I have a lot of home therapy equipment at home, stuff for my shoulder, stuff for my neck, stuff for
sure.
my foot. I had a bad motorcycle accident. So I'm always just trying to repair and get a little bit stronger and a little bit more agile. I mean, even right now, during these times, at least that gives me some goals to work towards, a little escape from the news cycle on my phone. And yeah, so that's been a real positive.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen some of the things that you post because you've got pretty cool Instagram out there, but you talk a lot about taking time to really appreciate nature and relaxing and all that. Could you talk a little bit about that and why that's become something that's been so attractive to you to do?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I find like I'm always supposed to go places and promote a wrestling match, but instead I tell people just to turn off their phones and go outside. It's
Yeah,
the best advice you can get. For me, one of the skills that I think is one of the, I don't know, personality traits, skill, I don't know what you want to call it, but creativity is super important to me. And if you go on a walk, it's been proven to increase your creativity by 50%. So just doing stuff like that actually stimulates your brain, it stimulates your mind. And then when you go back and go watch something on TV or watch some art, like your brain's going to process it in a different way, or maybe you'll
mm,
appreciate it more or see it from a different light. And by slowing things down, you can really see how things can be sped up. I think there's a lot of people who don't.
yeah,
Well, I can speak for myself. I lived a lot of time where there wasn't any silence. It was like fireworks and loud noises and all this stuff. So for me to counterbalance that, to find the balance, because even when you just walk out, advertisements have bright lights, shiny red things, try and get your attention. Big question: are you this enough? Are you that enough? And so I find if I give myself even just 5 minutes a day, just to get as quiet as I can and try not to think about anything, it's
yeah,
been very helpful to my ability to stay calm. And actually, I think I get physical benefits from it even when I'm working out. When I'm running out of breath, I do some breath work, and then I feel like a bit of a recharge. So I think there's a
hmm,
lot of ways where it's mind over matter, or really just a matter of acknowledging that um, you know a self-observation, an honest self-assessment. So that's sometimes tough for me because I'll have an injury, and if my honest self-assessment, it says, oh, maybe I should take this weekend off. But then if
right,
I have to work to make the money, you end up in these sort of cycles where you're maybe not listening to your best self, and then it's just hard to check. It's hard to check back in. But I think that's what's important for most people is, instead of asking like other people what you should do, I think it's best to like ask yourself. I think you're going to
hmm,
get a more honest answer, and you're going to get the answer you want to hear from yourself. If you just, but you can ask the question, but to get the answer, you have to be really quiet, I think.
yeah, yeah. Oh boy, I love this comment. Look at that. I'm putting this on the screen right now. The guru. I love it. Yeah. I mean, this
Yeah. Oh,
this
namaste.
I mean, it's just so what this makes me think of. We had a podcast not too long ago actually earlier this week with an educator friend of mine who runs early childhood education for Riverview Gardens, and in that. In that podcast, he really talked about taking this time to talk with your kids who are at home about nature and about getting out there and everything else. No, the cameras are a little off right now, but just talking about like really reconnecting with stuff that's out there that we oftentimes take for granted so much when we have this opportunity. And I think what you're really describing in a lot of ways is the practice of mindfulness, and that can be so beneficial for kids too. Because you're talking about this now, but obviously we're a little bit older now, and when we were younger, we did some stupid stuff. And when you're talking about a self-assessment, I remember going out there and and in case my mom's watching, I probably shouldn't say how many times, but dislocated my shoulder a bunch of times playing football because I was just, you got to play and you got to go out there and do this. But was there a point in time where that really clicked for you? And if so, like, how did that happen? Like, how did that realization come to you?
I don't know. For me, I think the first time I ever even had a chance to put on the brakes was after I broke my foot in a little bit of a motorcycle accident. And it was in that time where I couldn't do anything else that I started to figure out how to be happy without doing like a drop kick on a Saturday night. I mean, that's since I was a kid, that's all I was trying to do was just do a better drop kick or hit somebody else with it or, and pursue that. And I also had a lot of travel. And then so I realized, when you travel, there's a lot of things to explore that stimulate your mind. If you're in one place, sometimes you even just block out what's around you. And if you can walk into your house and see it for the first time, you'll see it completely differently than if you see it like you've always seen it. It's just sort of a different perspective to have.
Yeah. No, that's great. What do you have, I guess just like any thoughts for folks right now? And I guess, after this, I want to talk about some of the more political stuff you were mentioning, but any tips or ideas for kids who are looking at, professional wrestling, they watch it on TV, they're really excited about it. Maybe now they're watching Snapchat, Instagram, wherever it is. And those who are, either thinking about it or maybe thinking about doing something involved with that or something similar, or, even if it's just fitness in general. Is there anything that you've got on, for kids who are watching?
Yeah, I think it's just get involved with a place that has the right kind of positive mentality and kind of working towards a group goal, whether it's a wrestling organization or a fitness place. I think people, if they try and do it on their own, you're never going to do it. You need a team, you need a group, you need people that are going to support you and be a part of whatever you're going towards. And if you mix yourself up with people who are going towards the same goals, that's when you can sort of achieve them, because you're not going to achieve a goal just sitting at your house dreaming of it. But you can be sure that there's a lot of other kids, whether it's they wanted to be wrestlers or be in good shape, they're there dreaming about it too. You have to get organized, get everybody together, and then take that action. And if you find there's usually already groups going that have good leaders who don't abuse their power and are honest and really take pride in taking people from beginners through intermediate into advanced stages. And then it's just like one step at a time with anything. So just being around whatever it is you're interested in, whatever wrestling organization, just find the most local version of it and just start trying to learn it and be a part of it. And then all of a sudden you'll be on the inside.
Right. Yeah, I think that's, it's really true about so many of these things where you're trying to find folks that you can get together with who will be a really good, really good influence on you. And you'll be working towards that common goal. I think what's really cool, just like, look right now, for folks who are watching on this podcast right now, we talked about some of these audio issues or whatever. They're the ones who just fixed it. It's a group that is working together so much. And I think, oftentimes it's like you said, there are folks who abuse their power. I think you see that in the political system a lot too. And a lot of that comes from people who are afraid to allow other people to have control. And they're always like, I've got to be the one who's in charge, instead of empowering and trusting other people to do that kind of work. And so, I wonder, in you a lot of the conversations you were talking about, was kind of, how can we best serve the people? I wonder, when you're looking at the political system that we've got right now in America and the situation that we're in and all this stuff, I know you talked about healthcare is a big issue. Is there some kind of underlying issue you think that's on all of this stuff, education, healthcare, that's really something that, if you were in charge and we put you in charge of everything, the first thing that you would do, what do you think it would be that's something that you would focus on?
Well, I mean, I think it would be really important to get the money out of politics, so that way we would have more equitable politicians that would be representing like a more majority of people based on who they are, based on like their individualism, not based on if their corporate donations could be massive. I mean, I just really think that to make honest politicians out of people. I mean, that's one place to start. That's a big issue for me. I also feel like paying people a living wage is important. I think that's something America takes pride on, and we seem to fail a lot of people with the amount of money we think they're worth. Florida is known for having really low wages and extremely high rents. I think that's a massive problem, and there's a lot of people right now that are struggling with rent and mortgage payments. And I think the idea, I mean, right now you don't get too many opportunities in history to hit the pause button and you have the actual chance to kind of select all, delete, and rewrite everything in a way that's going to serve us going forward, not a way that served us in the past, because just of the insane exponential growth of technology has really affected our lives. And if we're not using it to help us, it's a very important tool. And it seems like our politicians and our leaders aren't using all these very important and powerful tools, and they're actually ending up in the hands of people. I'm not like being mean to Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, but individuals have an extreme amount of power over very few people, and that worries me in some ways. And so I just want to I'd love to kind of unify the people and get everybody together, so that way we have a government that works for us.
Yeah, I think that's. So it was interesting because I was sitting, I started through education, right? I started working with kids and teaching and saw a lot of the inequity of opportunity in those situations. But what it came to, the reason why I started running was because I was in court and I was arguing against these folks who spend all this money in politics, all this dark money where they hide the names of those big time donors too. And I could see literally right there the machinery that was making sure that our government isn't working for people, for us. And it's I feel like a lot of people get there through another issue and then they discover it, like they see, oh, like I really care about healthcare access, or I really care about agriculture and farming or environment or whatever it might be, and then they see all of this money behind all of these folks who are corrupting the system. And then they're like, well, darn it, like if we've got to deal with that first, if we're going to have any kind of, positive results in the system at all.
Yeah, I mean, when I was I think it was junior year of high school, I wrote a paper on the McCain-Feingold bill when that was coming out. And here's naive Matt. I honestly believe that this bill would become law, and clearly nobody would violate it, because I mean, if you weren't supporting this law, you supported corruption, and we all know that that's not the case. That I mean, they've blown past that a million times. The amount of like dark money is disgusting. I mean, there's nearly overt corruption. Same way with politicians doing insider trading. They flaunt it, and they really seem to be able to get away with it. And so I can see how that would be something that would inspire all of us to be in politics, because what's chump change to them is a lot of money to us. And I just feel like there's just been an ignorance of the people, because we've been just kind of complicit, and we get fooled into arguing about the wrong narratives instead of narratives that are more pertinent to our daily life, and people can easily be falsely divided. I unfortunately feel bad. You grew up in St. Louis, you love the Cardinals. You're like morally almost obligated to like want the umpires to cheat for them and help them win over the Cubs, let's say. And that always struck me as funny, because I never believed that. Like, I just wanted a fair game, and if it was foul, it was foul. If it's fair, it's fair. But I think we tend to like decide that, hey, you're on the red team or the blue team, and you have to dig in. And I really want people to say, it's just like about thinking for yourself is the most important thing. And if your beliefs are all in line with this person, by all means, but you have to question why you think things, question some of the assumptions that you make that got you to why you support people. And if we could kind of get everybody to deconstruct and then reconstruct things, see where we end up. I have faith in people. I think we can really do this change with the technology and the resources that we have. We could really do a lot of good. Unfortunately, that means you could also do a lot of harm.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Excuse me while I sneeze.
Oh, you're okay. That's all right. We do that every once. Bless you.
Sorry.
At least
I don't have a mute button.
Into the hat, so that's good because you just talked about the Cardinals. We're not sneezing into that darn thing. So yeah. Yeah. No.
We have a little bit of pollen allergies. That's what it is. Here's
right. Well, you can never. Everybody says you leave Missouri to escape that, but you don't. You just don't. I'm sorry.
No, you can't leave. You can't escape the humidity here either.
Yeah. It's tough. I hear you talk, and it sounds like, you've been thinking about this stuff for quite some time, and I wonder, have you thought about any political stuff in your future at all?
Yeah, well, let's just say in high school, Jesse Ventura was one of my heroes, a pro wrestler that became governor of Minnesota. Yeah. That's a very powerful position. And He tried to do good things, but he eventually realized that politics was so corrupted that there was no real change, no real good he could do for people. So he decided to kind of move to Mexico half the time and enjoy his life rather than get caught up in it. So I do balance out between those two things, but my heart really is in helping people. And if I'm going to be a part of things going on in the future, I want to do things that are helping my community or the globe. So that does involve politics because it's this network that has a ton of money and they want to do good. The intention, the network is set up to be able to do the greatest good. It's just a matter of getting the right people in charge with the right intentions. So yeah, I'd love to be a part of it. I just vote. That counts as being involved in politics.
Oh, my goodness. Yes.
I preach. I'm opinionated. Just, but I respect other people's opinion where they're coming from. I do think that it's important when talking about political discussions, we don't get wrapped up in these rhetoric words and liberal and conservative, and I really think that devalues the individual humans behind the ideas and what the ideas are. And the games we play with politics are really hard for me because I would love a rational, organized, honest debate, and I feel like that's one of the things that's really missing. I think Bernie Sanders was really giving us that as a politician who came in, just quoted numbers, said exactly the way things are, this is the way things are going, this is my suggestion, this is what I want to implement. I feel like we get just a lot more rhetoric and double talk and things that are reminiscent out of 1984 than honest old-fashioned politics.
Yeah, I think I see that a lot where we talked about this actually before we went on about this is the internet and you never know what kind of comments are going to come in, but as our social media presence or whatever has grown, obviously folks have found us and have said things. But I think you're totally right. I think that so much, just the other day, I was talking to somebody who disagrees with me on a number of things, but the fact that, I was polite and was willing to have a discussion and treated that person with respect meant the world. And now that person is a supporter, I think that people, because we haven't seen that in our politics so much, where we're just trying to think about how can we best serve people and how can we best make sure that our voices are heard. It seems like there's just such an obvious opportunity for politicians and for folks to get out there and say, hey, we're going to do this differently. And maybe, if our bickering and all of these divisions that we keep throwing up, all of these artificial things we keep throwing up isn't working, we really need to work and see past that. But at the same time, it really talks to that emotional side of the brain that really gets drawn into these things, and it's tough to break that.
Yeah, that it's an us versus them mentality, and if you have an us, then there is a them, and you're creating your own villain, you're creating your own opponent, and it creates the drama that's very intriguing and drama that sells. And really, right now, politics is all about selling flim flam, and they do a very good job of selling. In wrestling, we call them catchphrases. You sell a catchphrase, you print a T-shirt, you make a couple hats, you have a good run. A couple years later, you think of a new catchphrase, you throw it out there, and it's just it lacks a lot of substance, and that's kind of what the lack of substance in the political talk does upset me. I mean, when I was in college at Mizzou, I would listen to Bill O'Reilly. What's these other guys' names? Sean Hannity. I listened to quite a few of these guys because I couldn't understand where they were coming from, or I wanted to understand. So I knew my politics, I knew where I stood, and I wanted to hear what kind of they had to say. And I really believe back then they were speaking much more rationally, and the more hysteric type of speaking has just, when they realized that worked, when they realized that would catch the audience, they stuck with it rather than sticking to like honest journalistic roots. That you would get if you went to the University of Missouri Columbia J School. You know what I mean? If people went and they approached it from that regard, they would have distaste for that. And I just wish other people had distaste for misleading media. And I nobody's perfect, and we all have our personal biases. And
that's
that
right.
affect us, but that's, hey, at least my phone's still working.
Yeah, that's true.
I will mention that I have a low battery, so it may just kick out, and I'll say thanks for the podcast.
Oh, what percentage are you on right now?
You can't even check it while you're doing this thing.
Yeah, that's okay. All right, you know what? That's okay. Well, maybe we'll have to have you back on if you're in the middle of something really profound. We don't want to.
Unlikely.
I don't know. It's been pretty good. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of what you're saying is what a lot of folks are thinking, and a lot of folks, unfortunately, have checked out of the system as a result of that experience. But you, on the other hand, literally are encouraging folks to vote. You just did a few minutes ago. So I wonder what gives you, through all the stuff that you're seeing, what is giving you hope that we will see change, or that this stuff is actually going to work out in a positive way?
I just got a good gut feeling about it. I have, I'll tell you why. Because through pro wrestling, I started out just a random kid in St. Louis. Then I started to wrestle in all over the Midwest, started to wrestle on the East Coast and the West Coast, and in the Florida area. Then I started to wrestle in the UK and Germany. Then I started to wrestle in Japan. I wrestled in Canada and Mexico. And then by the time I got to WWE, we wrestled everywhere in Europe, down in South America. I mean, everywhere except the Arctic Circle. And everywhere I go, people are all the same. They really have the same interests, the same hearts, the same, where I go, I would meet people who on their best, like they're giving me their best everywhere I went. And it really just equalized everybody, the humanity, and just how no matter where you go or who you meet, people are so much the same. I think that's this thing that the internet is going to connect, and it will empower people, because you'll say there's not the difference between me and him. We're the same person. We both care about our family, our friends, and we just want to live a simple, happy life. There's really not a lot more to it than that. I think people really just want to help out. I think the more emphasis we start putting on our healthcare workers and how important they are and valuable, and we start orienting towards that and moving our particular budgets in favor of towards healthcare and towards the priorities of the people. It's a matter of like saying, hey, we all know we have a common priority. We all have these similar fears. We all have these similar hopes and dreams, and let's really unite around these and have leaders that represent us in that way. And then we can worry about the little details of the little politics and this and that, and the small bickering anytime. It's just hold on to your cause or whatever matters the most to you. But really, if we all take the pause and realize that if we pool all of our resources, we have enough for everybody. The age of scarcity is.
Oh, that's it. That's where he left us. I knew it, didn't I? I told you all this was going to happen. I said that Matt was going to be here. We were going to lose him in the middle of a profound statement. He was going to have to come back. You all heard it. So, yeah, he didn't charge his phone beforehand. And this is the era of social distancing. But, hopefully we'll get to have Matt back on. And he is very active on... not very active, honestly. He's pretty active on social media, on his Instagram. He's sharing a whole lot. And so we'll put links to him, and you can find him. If you like the interview and you want him to come back, tell him he should. It was interesting how we connected. We actually connected through Twitter, and I was, as some of you know, I tweet quite a bit and a lot about different issues. And the one that I was talking about a whole lot was dark money, and it was this money that is corrupting the political system right now, and how we can't see it. And in Missouri, in particular, we were impacted by dark money in the 2016 election, almost more so than a lot of other places, where millions and millions of unmarked money was coming into our politics, and we ended up electing a governor who, not too long after that, resigned, Eric Greitens. And, I was commenting something about him on Twitter, and he saw it, and he very much supported that. And, we hit it off, and we've been talking ever since. So he was very excited to have him on the show, even if we couldn't get him through the whole darn thing. But I think a lot of what he's talking about, and this is one of the reasons why I really want him to talk more. I know a lot of folks were like, "Oh, come on, talk about wrestling. That's what you know. That's what we're doing." But really, I hate this stay in your lane argument that we're hearing a whole lot. If you are in America and you are involved, even if you're not involved, heck, if you're here, you get a voice. That's how it should be. You should have a voice in our political system. And he's a voter. He's somebody who's very involved. He's somebody who's very passionate about all of these things. And we need to make sure that all of our voices are heard. And so I'm really excited that he got to come on and share a lot of his thoughts that, I hope people ask him a lot about, but I'm certainly happy that we got to do that. So, I'm really happy to have his support, and I'm sure we'll see a lot more of him too. So we were going to play a game with him. I was really excited. I had it over here. I've been hiding it from the dog the whole time because you never know when she's going to come in on the middle of it. I really appreciate you all for helping us. I was serious when I said that, to make sure that this podcast was working and that we had the views and everything that were up, and the audio was, I know, a little bit broken, but technology, what are you going to do right now? So we're trying to get better each time. And I really appreciate you being here for that. I do want to share a little bit of news since I do have some time and wasn't totally expecting that. We've got a bit of a problem in Missouri right now around the right to vote. Unfortunately, our statewide elected officials are not doing their job and ensuring that Missourians are able to vote. And that's right now during this virus outbreak. This is a serious issue. It's one that is going to impact all of us, and it's one that we need to have an avenue to do this safely. A bipartisan group of local election authorities in our state have been calling on our governor, our elected officials to do their jobs and to make sure that Missourians can vote safely. And what that often means is that we would use the current system we already have, the absentee ballot, in order to vote. And yes, for a lot of places, it's going to be hard if a lot more people absentee vote in order to count. So that's why we need to start planning now. I know the governor came on. He said he didn't believe that the coronavirus and the COVID-19 disease itself was a valid excuse for voting. Well, he's not the one who decides that. That's actually decided by the local election authorities. And the Secretary of State's supposed to have a role in that. And one person who nobody is talking about right now, and I don't know why, is the Attorney General. The Attorney General is the one who is supposed to come up with legal opinions on how Missouri law works. That includes how do we interpret the statute around absentee ballot voting. He's not doing his job. One thing that he could do is he could release an advisory opinion saying, yes, this is a valid excuse under the law, and if you allow people to vote, you did it in good faith at the very least, even if a court later says I was wrong. The biggest thing that he could have done, if there's so much confusion around this, and if there's going to be so many people who are going to be disagreeing, and I don't know if people should vote or not, is do your job, go to court, and ask a judge to rule on what does the law mean. The law is written by the legislature, and then the court is the one that says, well, here's what the scope of that meant, here's what these particular words meant. So if we're having a misinterpretation of whether an absentee ballot is allowed when there's a disease breakout, when the absentee language says that due to illness, you can vote absentee. Doesn't say you have to be sick. It just says due to illness. Well, let's go to court if we're really going to disagree on that. If we're really going to make this an issue, if we're really going to make this a partisan issue for some reason, despite the fact that a bipartisan group, I'm going to emphasize that again, a bipartisan group of election authorities says that we really need to get this together and make sure that people can vote safely. But if we're going to disagree on that and make it a political issue, go to court, do your job, get a judgment. Unfortunately, our Attorney General refuses to do that. So the ACLU, the NAACP, a bunch of voting protection groups, the League of Women Voters, they had to file a lawsuit. So they're the ones who have to do the job that we're paying our Attorney General to do right now. Obviously, I have a certain feeling about that. I think that's very wrong. It's a waste of our taxpayer money that he's just not doing it. I mean, what are you there for if you're not going to do it? So, unfortunately, our Attorney General has not come on the side of the people in making sure that we can vote safely, has not been working with a lot of these election authorities. Thankfully, I have reached out to all of them actually around the state, and we're working with a whole bunch to make the absentee ballot process easier for folks to apply to. And I'll put that in the comments too. If you go to the website votemissouri.org, that's vote, like voting, Missouri, like the state that we're in, .org, because that's the name of the website, then you'll be able to get on and actually fill out an absentee ballot request and then send it into the election authorities. On there, there's also a spreadsheet of all the election authorities who have confirmed that they can take your request for an absentee ballot by email. Boone County, out there right now, they've actually got a system that's already electronic, but some folks don't. And so we've been asking if email is okay. And we're up to over 40 counties now that have said, yes, please do. And we're following up with the other ones too, because we really need to make sure this helps. That's something that I'm very proud campaign volunteers worked on, but it's out there and anybody can use it, no matter who you're voting for, what party you want to do. If you go to votemissouri.org, you will be able to do that. I think we probably should play the game anyway. I kind of want to, and especially if folks are still on. So hold up, let me get this thing out. I really wanted to. And maybe I'll just make it an ask because I really want to have a guest on. But I don't know if all of you remember this, but back in when David Letterman was on, and I used to love this game, and I don't know why. The game was called Will It Float? And they would have folks who'd come on, they'd have a whole big show, and they talk about, whether something was going to float. So I was going to have Matt try to guess whether something was going to float or not, or have you guess on here too if you're online. I'm checking your comments and everything else. But yeah, he's gone now, so I'm going to have him come back. But let me know in the comments if you think Will It Float would be a great game to play. I think it would be pretty fun. If you've got suggestions for other games that we can play with guests while they're on the show, we would love that. We actually just had a texting party with volunteers last night where we were texting Missourians and seeing how they were doing, and asked folks, what ideas you had. And some people had some pretty good ones, some pretty bad ones, and this one might be a bad one. So this, I think, will float. Oh, half of it did, half of it didn't. So I think I lost that one, but it's too bad. I guess maybe I got some water in it or anything. No, half of it does, half of it doesn't. You never know what you're going to find on here. So we have opportunities for you to get involved. Again, really appreciative that Matt came on. I know we had some audio and video issues, so I really thank you for sticking through that. We will put this up as a podcast later. This will also be up on our YouTube channel, on Facebook, Twitter, everywhere else that you get all this stuff. And you can also start streaming this on our website at eladgross.org. But we put this out as a podcast later. It's called the Elad Pod, just like this is called. And you can find it now on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, Stitcher, whole bunch of places. So go ahead and subscribe to all of that stuff. That would be awesome. And that way you won't miss an episode. Last week we had... But we've had a few people. We've had Dave Gregg came on. We're actually about to put that one out as a podcast. He's running for state representative in the Springfield area. We had Emily Weber. I think she's the last published one on there. But we've got a few episodes, and we do some town hall events too. So, go ahead and subscribe. Let us know. If you're interested in helping us out today, in just a little over an hour, in fact, we are we are going to have a text party, another one similar to what we had last night. You'll get to text with me. I'll be there the entire time. And you can register right now on the website, eladgross.org. On the homepage, there is a gold button. You go ahead and click it, and it will take you to a Zoom registration page. And how this works is you will be texting folks in Missouri. We're not going and saying, hey, you all need to donate to this camp or you need to go vote right now. We're asking people how they're doing and what their ideas for Missouri are. That's actually something that I've been doing this entire campaign because I feel like it is so much more valuable for me to know what folks in our state need and to really put your ideas into action. And so a lot of the proposals that we've made, a lot of the policy proposals that are out there have been inspired or have, in fact, just been generated by people in Missouri. And I think it's so important for us to have, just like Matt was talking about, to have elected officials who respect that and who work hard to show up and to make sure that we are represented. So if you agree, you can really help us do that by coming and texting tonight and in a lot of other times too. So we'll have plenty of opportunities. The Zoom feature is pretty cool. We did one on Discord, if anybody knows what that is, last night. But the nice thing about that is as you are texting, you don't even have to feel worried about anything. As you're texting somebody, if a question comes up and you don't know how to answer it, you just ask me. Like, well, what do you think about this? And I'm right there. So I'm happy to help. It's also really cool because you get to see all of these people in the same room together. You get to meet them. You get to talk with them. And while you're texting, it's really easy to talk to each other too. So it's a great way to continue community and to meet new folks and to catch up and to have some company during our quarantine time. So I hope you'll check it out. I'll put it back on there so that you can all see it again. Again, that's going to be today from 3 to 5. We'll have more of these opportunities too in case you can't make it. If you can't and you'd like to, go to the website. You can click the Join Us button over there and put your email in, and that way we'll put you on our email list. We don't send very many emails at all, maybe 2 a week at the most, sometimes more if there's breaking news or something, but usually one's for an opportunity and one's our newsletter. But yeah, there will be a lot of opportunities for you to volunteer and to get involved. And for those of you who don't know, Daniel, who's our volunteer manager, is absolutely wonderful. And this has been a really fun experience. A lot of folks have enjoyed doing this with us, and we try to make it fun. As you can tell, we try to make this stuff fun. So it's serious, it's important, but we really have to engage folks and make sure that, like Matt was talking about, like I was talking about, that we can trust our government and make sure we're getting as many people involved as possible. So thank you so much. Make sure to go on our website, check us out. Congratulations, by the way, our furry friend competition is over. Oh my goodness, I almost forgot. Oh, that would have been terrible. Tiberius and Flynn are our champions. They are Missouri's furriest friend of the quarter, and they will now be entered into our tournament of champions that we will have at the end of this whole election thing. So we'll have all of the winners come together and maybe a few wild cards depending on the vote of the people. And so, folks, I will see you again on another episode of the Elad Pod next week. We'll have one. We'll have a few events this week, too. On Tuesday, we'll be putting this out there very soon. I'm going to do a very deep dive on our campaign finances, where our donations are coming from, on a special of Transparency Tuesday. So I'll talk a lot about that, answer all of your questions about how you can research candidates, too, and we'll go through that quite a bit and compare and contrast so you can see where all of this money is coming from and where it's coming from on our campaign, too. Great place to ask questions. And as always, you can find us online at eladgross.org. We're on Twitter. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're all over. Or wherever you are. If you ever need anything, let us know. Thanks, and we'll see you soon.